Bill Maher had Chris Pratt on his podcast, and even though Bill Maher usually gets stoned here, I don't think Chris Pratt partook. But he did sort of bring a red pill for Bill to try. Take a look at this.
I'm glad I live in America, the kick-assiest nation. Do I think we always kick ass the right way? No.
Right.
But I'd rather be with the kick-ass people than the getting their ass kicked people.
Right.
And generally, we've been righter and more moral than most. I know that's a low bar. Yes, it is a low bar. That's why we were pretty good at passing it. If you think we're the worst country in the world, then just fucking do some research. Just fucking noodle around the internet. You will find a lot of people who did a lot of worse things.
Right.
And the military, has its issues, but generally, I'm thankful for them. Orwell said it. Great quote about most people sleep peaceably in their beds at night because rough men are willing to do violence.
Listen, I'm torn about Bill Maher. I think I've said it before. I don't like him. I will always hold a grudge against him for saying unkind things about Andrew Breitbart right after he passed away. And I think that he's got some of the worst instincts and amoral positions on so many things. But I also know people who know him and consider him a friend. Like conservative friends of mine know him from my days in Hollywood and said, yeah, he's not that bad. Sorry, I don't want to get to know him. I don't care about this little intellectual journey he's going on. But what you just heard from him about America and about our military and about how we stack up against the rest of the world, his audience hates that. His writer's room hates that. His producers hate that. The network that pays for him on HBO hate hearing that. And I feel like sometimes when he does this podcast, he has this cathartic thing where he's like, this is the only way he can talk back to the people that he's surrounded by every day at work. And guests like Chris Pratt bring this out in him. And there was more.
Politics, you inherit enemies. And when you jump on the bandwagon with who is the most divisive president ever, it makes sense that you're going to be made to look terrible. And so I don't know what to believe, because it's not like I sit with Bobby and I go, so hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about it's like we're just playing cards or playing Mafia or having fun or having dinner. I'm not going to pick his brain to find out exactly which of those things are true. I just kind of assume that none of them are. And for the most part, I wish him well, man. I hope there's certain things that he overseas that seem to be supported in a bipartisan way, like getting terrible toxic stuff out of our kids' food. I think that's a great thing. And so if you do that, that's amazing. I'd hate to be so mired in hatred for the president that any success from his administration is something I'd have an allergic reaction to be like, oh, well, if they do it, I don't want it to happen. I'll put Clorox in my children's cereal myself. It's like, come on, be reasonable here. There's certain things that would be a good thing to have. I want them all to be successful.
All right, now listen, but they were obviously talking about Robert Kennedy, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You heard him refer to Bobby getting stuff out of food, and there's more between Maher and Pratt about Bobby Kennedy. We'll show you that in a second, but I just want you to know, as somebody who used to live and work in Hollywood, Los Angeles, in the entertainment business, I was in the theater business, but I interacted with people in film and television all the time. What you just heard from Chris Pratt was coded language for a conservative in Hollywood. Some conservatives in Hollywood are unguarded about what they believe and where they stand. People like John Voight, or people like Sylvester Stallone, and other Hollywood actors or directors who really don't care anymore. They're too big to fail. They're too big to cancel, right? But there are other Hollywood actors who, don't want to tick people off. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. They don't want to. And again, I'm not suggesting Chris Pratt. I have no idea how conservative he is, but I assure you, if you're a conservative in Hollywood and there's a Republican president and you are saying things like, listen, I don't really get into this, but if they can achieve this thing they want to achieve, then I'm rooting for them. I want that to be a good thing. I want there to be success. Literally in Hollywood, if you say that, if you're not as big as Chris Pratt, you won't work again. You're not allowed to want anything that a Republican president does be a success. Anything. even making our kids healthier. Seriously. By the way, that's one of the reasons why it was kind of genius, as we told you the day it happened during the campaign last year, when Trump made his alliance with Robert Kennedy, because it blew people's minds. They didn't know what to think. Wait, hold on a second. Trump's in favor of keeping our kids healthy and getting junk out of our food? Wait a second. I thought he was evil. I thought, right? I mean, it was singly one of the most brilliant political maneuvers of the last 100 years in American politics. So let's go a little bit more about Bobby Kennedy here with Bill Maher. And I want to give a hat tip to Vigilant Fox on X, who compiled most of these clips here. Good job. Thank you.
I said to him when he was here, so I don't agree with everything you said, and I don't think your father would either, but your father would be so proud that you stuck to your guns like more than anybody. I mean, this guy, when this guy believes something, you cannot move him off of it with your bribes.
Yeah, you're right.
For better and worse.
That's a virtue.
I said to him when he was here, so I don't agree with everything you.
Oops, sorry. I didn't know the clip was going to run again there. And again, that's the kind of thing that if you say, now the one saving grace for Bill Maher here in Hollywood is that up until a year and a half ago, or a year ago, really, Bobby Kennedy was the toast of the town. He's married to an actress who was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he's a Kennedy, and he hates, big oil and fossil fuels. So let's have him over, and he's funny and he's quirky and he's a conversation piece. And oh yes, we have a Kennedy over for dinner tonight. Oh, you do? Oh yes, it's Bobby. Yeah, Bobby's coming over for dinner. And they do that whole thing. So there's enough people in Hollywood are still like, ugh, I hate that he went on MAGA, but yeah, I mean, sure, okay. He still sort of bridges the gap there a little bit, not much though, because the fact that he threw down with Trump, some of them absolutely think that he's evil incarnate, that he's sold out, that he's the devil, that he was never the real thing. Who cares? He is a fascinating political figure. You have to say that about Bill Maher, or excuse me, about Bobby Kennedy. But Bill Maher praising Bobby Kennedy like that, Maher's turning a corner. I'm not rooting for him. I don't care. Like I said, I don't like him. Don't want to like him. And I think he's immoral, amoral, kind of a jerk. And by the way, there's nothing in it for him. I do want to say that. Bill Maher can do exactly what Colbert and Fallon and Seth Meyers and Saturday Night Live has done. And he's got less pressure because he's on freaking cable and he's in LA and he only has to do one show a week. So he could easily just steer into the TDS and just be anti-Trump times 1,000 now. But he's not. And I find that interesting. And I think you would too. Here he was on the show. This is the actual show that he does for HBO, not the podcast with Chris Pratt. And take a look at this.
Look, I'll say this for Trump. He's got this idea that America is still the biggest swinging dick in the world, and we have not used our power as much as we should. That's what the tariffs are about. We have the power to change these people's, other nations' trading practices with us, some of which were out of line. I'm surprised that people went along with it as much as they did. So he wasn't completely wrong about that. He said, look, NATO hasn't been paying their fair share. I'm going to make them do that. He wasn't wrong about that. And I'll tell you this, one thing about him that I know, I'm not going to tell you how I know, but a lot of people have seen the same thing. He really does hate war. Right. He really does not like it when people die in war. There's 4 different wars.
All right. So that's all very revealing. And I do like that last thing there. And you ask anybody else who has worked in the Trump administration, who has known Trump during his political years in the last 10 years, and they all say the same thing, that he does hate war. And if he's going to use our military for violent purposes, he wants to make sure that it's done right, that it's done well, that it's done with the least amount of casualties, not just for us, but for our enemies and civilians as well. And he doesn't want there to be a long-term military commitment. I hear that consistently about Donald Trump. And by the way, I think that's what we want our president to believe. Isn't that what we want our they always tell us that that's their approach, and then they end up using the military and seeing pretty cavalier about the use of our military and long-term commitments, right? But that is consistent of something. There's another thing that Trump hates, and that is violence against children. If children are being harmed, he freaks out. That's why I get worried about his reaction to the whole Hamas-Israel thing, because of all the propaganda about children in the Gaza territories. But he seems to be pretty secure in his position. He keeps tweeting about the fact that if Hamas wants to end the bloodshed and everything, all they need to do is surrender and give up the hostages. He posted it again this morning on X. So he knows who's at fault with the harming of children in that area right now. But that said, again, it's so funny that you have to give all this credit to Bill Maher for saying this astounding thing. And all he's doing is acknowledging the truth of the matter, that making European nations increase their commitment to NATO is a good thing. And no one ever tried it. And he said he would do it, and he did it. Making other countries actually step up and give us some concessions on our trade deals because we've been exploited and taken advantage of because of our intention to have free trade, even though our trading partners don't care and they've been screwing us and nobody said anything about it. And he said, no, enough of that. It's a fact. This is not opinion. This is not a political position. It's just the fact that Trump has been able to do those things. And by recognizing those facts, everyone's like, Bill Maher is a crazy MAGA hat wearing red-pilled conservative. No, he's not. But we got to give him credit for pointing out the obvious truth. But I will give him credit for this. Unlike his counterparts, he finds criticism and biting criticism for the leaders of the Democrats right now.
People ask me all the time, why haven't you ever had Hillary or Bill Clinton on? Why didn't you have Kamala on during the last campaign? You think we don't ask? We ask these people every week. They say no. It took 8 years and a petition to get Obama on. And these are people, all people I voted for. Think about that. They're afraid to come on the show of a guy who voted for them. The Republicans, they show up. And when they do, they take their beating like a man.
All right. So there you go. That's Bill Maher doing his Bill Maher thing. And, you do have to give him credit for being honest. Isn't that funny that we have a media personality who has a platform? Yes, he's a comedian. Yes, it's an entertainment show. But he does get politicians to come on the show from both parties, not like Stephen Colbert, not like Seth Meyers, not like Jimmy Kimmel. He actually wants both parties to show up and engage with him. And I guess we give him credit for that.